Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone, wherever you might be. A warm welcome. My name is Mabel Gunda. I am the Communications Manager for the Internet Society Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our conversation today, which will be all about Confessions of a Philanthropy Startup. And over the next 30 minutes, along with my team, we will be sharing with you highlights of what 2020 was like for us, as well as giving you a preview into what we are planning for 2021. And as many of you probably know, 2019 is when the foundation was established. And 2020 really was our first operational year. So since that time, we've learned, we've reflected, and we're really happy to be here with you today to share some of what we know. Let me take a moment here and introduce the rest of my team, and I'll ask them each to smile and wave as I say their names so you'll know who they are. And so first up, we have Sarah Armstrong, and Sarah is the Executive Director of the Internet Society Foundation. And then we have Connie Kendig. Connie is our Operations Director. We have Brittany Piovison, as well as Shayna Robinson, and both Brittany and Shayna are program officers with the foundation. We have Julia Plume. Julia is our program operations specialist. And then we have Suzanne Mujereza. Suzanne is our monitoring and evaluation manager. And then last but not least, we have the two newest members of our team who just joined us in 2021, and that is Tasneem Brood, as well as Guillermo Roca. And they are both grant specialists for our Beyond the Net program. And then of course myself, Mabel Gunda, and I manage communications for the team. And so we are going to get into our conversation right now, which will be structured as a panel for about 30 minutes, after which we'll open it up to Q&A. And we do ask that you feel free to drop your questions into the chat as we go along. And if you prefer to ask your question in French or Spanish or even Portuguese, feel free to do that. And one of our team members will be able to respond. So without further ado, let me just take a moment here and share my screen, and we'll get going with this conversation. Okay, so as I said, we're here talking and reflecting on what 2020 looked like and what we are thinking about for 2021. So my first question goes to the two members of our team who have been with us the longest, and that's Sarah, our executive director, and Connie, our operations director. And so I'll ask them to share with us that, being that 2020 was our first operational year, can you speak about that experience and specifically some of what you've learned from the whole process of building an organization from the ground up?
Well, thank you so much, Mabel. As she mentioned, my name is Sarah Armstrong. I'm the Executive Director of the Internet Society Foundation, and I'm thrilled to be here. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us. We feel it's extremely important for you to understand where we've come from and where we're going, so that when we work together, we have a good solid base. So I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on the history very briefly, and then talk, as Mabel had asked me to talk about, what it is that we are looking at from our first operational year, 2020, and then beyond a little bit into 2021 later on in the program. So I think we'll just go to the next slide. And as you can see here, this is the team that introduced themselves just now. This team is an amazing team. It's a group of people with whom I am so fortunate to work because they have a passion to really see a difference in the world. And that's what the foundation is all about. The Internet Society Foundation was actually discussed among a group of people, including community members from the internet community, including people from the board of directors from the Internet Society and others, but they also brought in a consultant, Bridgespan, which specializes in starting foundations. The whole idea back then during those discussions was to find a way to expand the vision and the mission of the Internet Society through philanthropy. So the whole idea of the foundation is to give grants. We are a grant giving organization, and we are doing it to further the mission of the Internet Society. And I'll come to that in a second. I want you to know just how much time and thought went into this with the consultant. Where are the gaps that need to be filled? What are the things that philanthropy can really help to do to make people's lives better, to improve the connectivity, to get people to benefit from the internet? So we had all these people working on this together and came up with a plan. Then they launched the foundation with this plan in mind in 2019 in February. In February, they were launched with the communications department putting out a website. And this was a real, true partnership between the Internet Society, the community, the Bridgespan consultants, and then ultimately staff for the Internet Society Foundation. So I came on board in 2019, July. And my goal for that first 6 months of that year was to figure out what we should do. So I spent a lot of time researching, reviewing all the materials that have been put together, and starting to think about what the operations of a startup foundation that is meant to give money to help people get connected and benefit from the internet, what is it that we needed to do? So between that period of 2019 when I started and all throughout last year, I spent time really thinking about the team, the operations, what kind of grants management system we should have, and most importantly, what types of programs we should have. So little by little, I brought on these smart people, these really creative, wonderfully smart people to help me shape this. And as Mabel mentioned, Connie was really the first one by my side. She was actually an Internet Society Foundation employee. And she was just magical for me to have as a partner during that time. And she did join the foundation ultimately, as did all of the other people that you see here on this screen. So we spent that first year getting programs off the ground, getting management systems off the ground, et cetera. And I'm going to have, of course, other people talk about what specifically those programs are and what's going on this year and what went on last year. So next slide, please. The vision for our Internet Society Foundation is the internet is for everyone. This is also the vision of the Internet Society. For the foundation, this means finding ways to fund organizations that can help connect people throughout the world and to also make sure that they understand the benefits of being connected, whether it's economic growth opportunities, education opportunities, healthcare opportunities. We're looking at all of this. We're looking at it through how we can use research to help us further this vision. All these different things that we're doing is all about the internet being for everyone. And we are thrilled to be able to know that we can make a difference in the world, particularly at this time when the internet could not be more important. No one knew COVID was going to be part of our portfolio and we were going to have to respond to it, but we sure as heck have had to, and we did in 2020. Next slide, please. So this is the mission of the Internet Society Foundation. When there are a lot of words on slides, I try not to read them. I'd rather that you just take a look and see what they say. But the words I want to point out is that we are championing ideas and we are enabling communities. And it's all about unlocking the internet's potential to tackle the world's evolving challenges. The internet can do this. And we as an organization with our funding, working with you, organizations that we fund, we can do this. And we're very excited about where we're going. As you can see, there are some different ways in which we are achieving this mission. And the one I want to point out is at the bottom, is evaluating our portfolio's impact and adapting to lessons learned. That means that as we move forward each year, each day, each hour, we learn from what we do and we make adjustments as necessary. We are very transparent in the work that we do, and we are very accountable to making sure that the funding we give actually makes an impact. So that's an overview of a little bit of the history. It's our vision, it's our mission, it's who we are. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Connie Kendig. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mabel, for your question. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Mabel had asked about looking back at last year, and I would be remiss if I did not think about how the foundation had navigated the pandemic. Last year, the whole world was forced to adjust in ways small and large, and thankfully that mentality of needing to adjust to whatever came our way was part of our DNA back in 2019 when Sarah was hired. So as you all know, with a new organization, a new annual plan, a new project that you've been funded, you can plan all you want, but you also need to acknowledge that you will need to change, you'll need to pivot. Sometimes that's for good things, and also, of course, it's for not so good things. So back in 2019, Sarah established this culture where each of us was encouraged to think boldly and bring our new ideas to the table so that we could shape the foundation together and then run with it. So truly, we had this freedom to experiment and see what happened. So if you have that mindset going into it, as we did when we entered 2020, it allows you to be ready to make that adjustment when needed because you expect it. It becomes inevitable. Of course, no one expected the enormous shift that each and every one of us had to take and are still taking today. But the foundation's team sort of went with it because we had that flexible thinking already ingrained in the way that we were working. I will also note that there was an extra dose of dumb luck involved with last year as well. I need to pay kudos to that as well. It was our first operational year during a pandemic with aggressive timelines to get our new organization up and going with all the operational pieces in place. And our small staff, the ISOC staff that were working with us, and all of the consultants that we were dependent upon as well, none of us became ill last year. So that really is something that I'm incredibly fortunate about. I'm very thankful for that. I'm thankful for this team. And I'm very thankful that we have this focus on our physical health as well and our mental well-being. I think both of those are really key to having navigated last year and continuing to navigate this year. And it allows us to do the good work that we were able to do and to really finish out the year in a successful fashion. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Connie. And you mentioned something that I want to pick up on, which is this whole idea around experimenting and flexibility. And so I'll turn the next question to Brittany and Shayna, our program officers, and I'll ask them to just elaborate around how this whole mindset around flexibility and experimenting, how did that actually play out on the program side? Maybe Brittany, I'll have you go first.
Hi, it's great to see and read so many kind of familiar names and faces, and welcome to everyone to the call. Thank you for being here. So I'll talk a little bit more about some of the programs that I manage and kind of how we've adopted those throughout the year. So the first program I'll mention is the Beyond the Net program, which we kind of inherited from the Internet Society. It's been running for almost a decade now. And the Beyond the Net program comes in kind of two flavors, is the term I'm going to use this morning. There's a Beyond the Net Small, which is grants of up to $3,500, and Beyond the Net Large, which is grants of up to $30,000, specifically targeted to the Internet Society chapters. So upon kind of starting the foundation and starting this role, we kind of inherited and got this kind of giant and really active community of chapters, which has been great. So we've had work since the kind of very beginning of my time here. And we have adapted that program a little bit over the year, made some kind of small tweaks and changes, tried to increase the funding available to chapters, but I think kept it really kind of central to its core, which is really kind of supporting work at the local level through the Internet Society chapters. I feel like the caffeine's kicking in at this point, so I'm gonna try and slow down my speaking, which I feel like is fast. The other program that I manage is our skills program, which stands for Strengthening Communities, Improving Lives and Livelihoods. And that was launched last, which was like 37 months ago and also 8 months ago. And this is a program that focuses on leveraging internet access in whatever form that might exist in the community to improve educational outcomes and economic opportunities. which you'll see here. And we piloted that in 3 countries this year. Those countries were Colombia, Bangladesh, and Senegal, with the hopes that moving forward, we would kind of expand to other countries in those regions. So we have 9 grantees under that program right now. And we're really kind of figuring out what makes the most sense in coordination with our grantees and finding the best ways to have impact through that. And I'll also briefly mention what isn't really a program, but more sponsorships that we do. We also fund internet governance forums and schools of internet governance at the national, regional, and global levels. And we do that through our chapters and also other members of the global internet community. And before handing this over to Shayna, I will say, Mabel briefly mentioned that we kind of had this test, learn, adapt philosophy to our work, which is we try things out, see how they went. And if it went good, keep doing it. If it didn't, then we adapt it. And that is something that was in the original Bridgespan documents that Sarah mentioned, but it's definitely something that my colleague Shayna, who's going to talk next, has really kind of made sure becomes a core part of our community here at the Internet Society Foundation. And that is definitely something that informs a lot of the work that we do. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Shayna.
Thank you so much, Brittany. That was a really lovely introduction. I appreciate it. So the 2 programs that I was responsible for in 2020 really speak to our test, learn, adapt approach. The first program that we launched and really started on day 1 that I arrived at the foundation was the emergency response program, which was, as Sarah mentioned earlier, a response to COVID. This was not something that we had planned. This was not anything that the consultants or anyone thought would be a program for us. But certainly with Sarah's leadership and foresight, she decided that was something that we could do and that we should do. And so that really, again, is just a testament to sort of our flexibility and our approach to the types of the work that we would support. That program is actually relaunching. So we're going to open up the application window for that program in March. So I would encourage you to check out our website and look at that, share with your networks if it's something that you're interested in. And that you're eligible for. We encourage you to apply this year. We are looking for projects that specifically focus on connectivity, so connecting vulnerable or deeply impacted communities who are, disproportionately impacted by COVID and connecting them to the internet. So please check that out if you can. The second program that launched in 2020 that I was sort of in charge of and designing and implementing was the research program. And this program we've had, I'd like to say, a lot of fun with in terms of how it has looked and how it's been designed and how we're implementing it. And one of the really great things that we're trying to do with that is to build in more collaborative opportunities, workshops, things of that nature for grant applicants so that they can improve and strengthen their applications or proposals before they go to review. And we've had some really great success with that. We've just announced our first cohort of grantees a few weeks ago, and we're looking to have another review meeting for new grantees for the newest cohort in a few weeks' time. So again, just stay tuned to all of our socials and our website if you're interested and curious about the kinds of things that are going on there. But with that, I will turn it over back to Mabel.
Thank you so much, Shayna. I will ask my next question. Hopefully everyone will get a chance to weigh in on this one. And so as a foundation, one of the most important relationships we have is with our grantees, of course. And so can you just share a little bit, and I'll ask Brittany to start, around who our grantees are. And then for the rest of the team, I'd love you all to weigh in on what we're doing as a foundation, as a new foundation particularly, to really set the stage so that we can have effective and sustainable relationships with all our grantees. So I'll ask Brittany to kick us off.
Awesome. So talking about grantees is one of my favorite things because you all are the community who are the subject matter experts who know the context and are doing the important work on the ground. And so it's great that we get to support you in doing that. We have a very kind of wide and broad grantee community here at the foundation. As you'll notice, we reached almost 60 countries in our first year of work and managed to award last year, which is a pretty large number of grants that went out the door. And so who are these kind of other groups that you work alongside here at the foundation? Well, our grantee community spans, as I'd mentioned, Internet Society chapters. Internet Society chapters are kind of local organizations that support the mission of the Internet Society. There's, I believe, 123 or 132 around the world, across all 6 continents. And they really help us support and move forward our mission. As I mentioned, have been working on some of these programs for up to a decade. We also have kind of nonprofits, or the equivalents of US 501c3s, you know what that is if you're a grantee, that we work with, again, across the world. And then we also work with kind of academic institutions and academics themselves through programs that Shana runs. And so you'll see on this slide the names of all our current grantees. Sorry, ISOC chapters, there's too many of you to put all of you on here, but you'll see your names up there as well. And these organizations range from kind of small local organizations that are based in the country in which they operate to large international organizations. So there's quite a range of individuals and organizations represented on this call.
Thank you so much for that, Brittany. And as I look at this slide, it's exciting, I think, as for this team to see how much our portfolio has grown in the past year. And just also, as you said, Brittany, the diversity in the organizations we're supporting. It's a great opportunity for us as a foundation to keep learning and to just make sure we're sharpening our knowledge so that we can be the best partners to our grantees. And that actually brings me to my next question, which is around learning. And I will direct this one to Julia. And Julia, you've been kind of taking the lead in helping spearhead a learning culture across our team. So could you speak a little bit about some of the practical things we're doing just to make sure we're staying in the know and just sharpening our knowledge in the whole field of philanthropy, which is a field that is continuously evolving?
Sure, thanks, Mabel. Just in case no one can tell who's talking, it's the person with the mask. I'm currently escaping the Texas snowstorm of 2021 in a hotel and also trying not to get COVID. So, or give it to anyone else. So anyway, yes, thank you, Mabel. The foundation team has been really trying to foster a culture of learning and awareness over the past year and a little bit. And one part of that has been our lunch and learn meetings that Shana introduced to the team. These happen typically once a month, and they're led by different team members, focusing on subjects that are not exactly aligned with our work, maybe things that are a little outside of our everyday work, but just aiming to generate some conversation and thought around topics that might influence our work and our learning, and things that can be of interest to everybody. Another piece has been our foundation subscribing to several organizations that have grant making and philanthropic communities. And these have included Peak Grant Making, Exponent, and the Council on Foundations. And all of these organizations combine educational resources with access to a community of other grant-making organizations and professionals, which in 2020, given that we could not travel and network with peers, has been extremely valuable, and that we have this community that we can access and learn from and ask questions of. And so that's been really valuable in the last year. And one of the consistent themes that we're seeing that we're trying to build on and explore more is, and what we're prioritizing going forward is how to make the grantee experience more equitable and how we can improve the overall grantee experience. So whether this means adjusting reporting requirements to make regular reporting less burdensome on our grantees, or simplifying the application process, our goal is to make the grantee experience as equitable as possible, and also to provide our grantees with every opportunity for success. So we also welcome feedback from our communities as well. So whether your experiences are good or not so good, we want to use that knowledge to further adapt and grow where we need to. So please always reach out if you have feedback or comments or questions for us.
Thank you for that, Julia. And I want to pick up on one aspect you mentioned of the grantee experience, which is all around reporting and measurement, which of course is something our grantees are thinking about all the time. So I want to turn over to Sue, who is our monitoring and evaluation manager. Sue, can you just speak a little bit about just what is top of mind for you as you start to shape the monitoring, evaluation, and learning strategy for the foundation? If you could share just a couple of highlights of what you're thinking as you frame that strategy.
Thank you, Mabel. Hello, everyone. The key focus for the monitoring and evaluation pillars of our work is really on building dialogue and partnership with grantees, and then developing a system of evaluation and learning across our portfolio and with the individual programs. So as we look forward and deepen our program work, we have started to develop a series of result statements for our individual programs that clarify what success looks like for us, so that we're clear with our grantees from the outset on how we define success and the kind of results that we would be interested in tracking. The second thing that we've been discussing is to reduce or limit our reliance on long written reports, which can sometimes be a bit onerous for grantees, but to as much as possible create a culture of dialogue in reporting results where we ask grantees to identify the results or the change that is most significant or meaningful for them and share that with us in stories, through check-in calls, through blogs eventually, so that we are part of a co-creation process where we really tease out results, not just in terms of handing out money, but in how they solve real world problems that grantees identify. In terms of building a culture of reflection internally, this is really being done with the program teams, Oshana and B, to create this culture of learning where we think about where we want our programs to go. As Sarah mentioned, they were handed to us by Bridgespan, so we are very much in the testing iterative phase of implementing, and part of that requires us to evaluate what works and how, and if there's any adaptations to be made, strategic decisions and funding that need to be made. We would hope to be building that body of evidence through some tracking and documenting of results and change. So these are the high level things we're thinking about on a daily basis. Thanks, Mabel.
Thank you for that, Sue. I want to switch over now and just ask the two newest members of our team, Tasneem and Guy, who, as I mentioned, are both grant specialists for the Beyond the Net program, which is one of our longest running grant programs, used to be part of the Internet Society, then moved over to the foundation. And so day to day, they'll be engaging with all our different chapters around the world. And so perhaps I'll start with Tasneem and then Guy, but just share with us really quickly, what you're excited about, maybe one or two things you're most excited about as you start settling into your new roles.
Hi, everyone. So as grant specialists, we'll be helping and supporting chapters all around the world to implement projects that support the vision of an internet for everyone. We'll find opportunities for community and movement building by organizing workshops and information stations. And hopefully we'll be able to do so in French, English, and Spanish. And just as a note, I'll be managing grants in Asia, Africa, and the Middle East and North Africa.
Thank you for that, Tasneem. And Guy, do you want to jump in?
Yes, thank you, Mabel. So just to add to Tasneem just said, I will be also the grant specialist for managing grants in the region of Latin America, North America, and also Europe. And yeah, I think it's really exciting that the foundation dedicated budget and time in order to bring two new grant specialists so that we can really be invested in the chapters all around the world and just be aware of all the things that they are doing, and also leverage collaboration opportunities, workshops opportunities, as Tasneem just mentioned. So yes, we are really, really excited to work together with all the chapters and really see how we can help them in a better structured way.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Guy. And so I'll ask Shayna to round us out. And my question to you, Shayna, would be, as you continue to shape your programs and work with the different grantees, can you tell us, are there any specific values that are really just guiding your work and your approach?
Yeah, definitely. I would just reiterate sort of our test, learn, adapt approach, and that we're trying to remain really intentional with the decisions that we're making with regard to our grant making. And so, you know, we have an idea, we have a concept for the design of a program. We try it out, and you know, if it doesn't work, we're happy to go back to the drawing board and try something new. And I think one of the big things that we're focusing on and looking towards as we sort of build the programs out even further is how do we bring in more trust and really have sort of trust-based philanthropic programmatic, you know, design, so that it really becomes a partnership between us and the grantees and our community of partners. We know that there are power dynamics. We know that there are issues and biases and things that come up, particularly for organizations that are working in international grant making and development. And so we are aware of that, and we're consciously working to ensure that, you know, the things that we're doing are equitable and really lend itself to not only achieving our mission, but to really work towards a certain form of justice and equality. So I would just say that, and finally, you know, all of that sort of comes from and sort of begins and ends with our executive director, Sarah, who really is a champion for all of these ideas and really supports and motivates us to really to go out and do the best that we can. So I just wanted to say that as well.
Thanks so much for that, Shayna. And actually with that, I'm about to hand it over to Sarah, who is going to take us through what our priorities for 2021 are.
So thank you again. Thank you to every member of the team who joined the conversation just now to share who it is that we are, where we want to go, what we're learning, and the fact that as a team, we are really motivated working together to make a difference in this world. And there's nothing but passion on this team, and I love it. So the 2021 priorities. So you heard a lot about 2020. But you also heard a little about 2021 and the fact that we are going to be continuing certain programs. Shayna, for example, mentioned that that emergency response COVID-19 would be relaunching in March. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. These are the programs for 2021. So Beyond the Net, the one on which Bee, Guy, and Tasneem are working on the Beyond the Net Small and the Beyond the Net Large grants, those will continue. Internet Society chapters are eligible for all of those grants, and they will be open throughout the year to come in and do some amazing work. And we've got great stories already, and we look forward to having more stories in 2021 to share with the world. Bee's other program, Brittany's other program, Skills, will also continue. As she mentioned, 3 countries are the focus: Bangladesh, Colombia, and Senegal. We'll continue to work in those countries. She does, however, have an idea that she'd like to expand in those regions at some point. But for this year, the idea is to stay in those 3 countries, expand our presence there, expand what we can do in those countries, and then we'll go ahead and see what we can do beyond that. We also, as I mentioned, research is going to continue. That was Shayna mentioned, and she is right. It is a fun program. We have seen some amazing stuff come in, and we are thrilled with the first cohort And as Shana mentioned, we have a second cohort now that she'll be meeting with to talk about. She's very collaborative as a program officer. She's great at working with her grantees to see what they can do to maybe improve the applications that they put in and work better together to strengthen their programs. So you see a lot of that collaboration in the research area. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, emergency response will launch again. COVID's not going away. The need for the internet is more than ever, as we know. And with this pandemic, this foundation has an obligation to continue to fund programs that directly impact or respond to the situation with the pandemic. So in addition to that, we have this program called RARE, and part of it is responding to emergencies, but our intention is to also launch another part of that. And this also comes from the Bridgespan research. There is a gap in helping to build resilient communities. I don't have to tell everybody on this call that vulnerable populations are really much more disproportionately impacted by the climate change and what's happening in terms of natural disasters. So what we want to do is work with organizations to make sure that those countries have a better infrastructure, are stronger, are more ready for whatever it is that hits them. So that will be a new program that we'll launch. And then finally, BOLT is building opportunities and leveraging technology. And that again will be something that Jada will be doing. And her work here is something that we're still working through, but the idea is to focus on innovation. And so we'll define that more and we'll plan to launch that later in the year. And finally, throughout the 2021 period, we will continue to fund, as Bea mentioned earlier, the global, regional, and national IGFs, as well as the schools of internet governance. And then we'll also continue to fund the IETF LLC in 2021. So those are the program and funding areas for 2021. What I'd like to share with you now are our objectives for the year, as well as our success measures. Once again, I won't go ahead and read everything that's on here, but as you can see, we want to commit to funding a lot of programs to make a difference in the world. And we want high quality, independently reviewed. This was something that we mentioned earlier. Our applications are reviewed by an outside committee. We call them the Independent Program Review Committee, IPRC. We are very committed to being transparent and being sure that we have outside counsel in terms of making the final decisions on who gets the funding from the Internet Society Foundation. So we'll promote the opportunities, establish the community of grantees. Again, what Bea and what Shana were referring to, the importance of working with their grantees, actually Guy and Tasneem as well. And also really what Connie does in the operations area helps to achieve all of these objectives because she has developed an incredible system that is easy for our grantees to use and interact and get the help that they need. So she and Julia together are a really big part of achieving these objectives, as well as the program office. And then of course I mentioned we'll launch the 2 new program funding areas, and those will be BOLT and then the resiliency. And finally, our success measures. You have to have objectives, but you also need to be sure that you can meet those objectives. So once again, I won't read you this slide, but you can see that we have measurements. And this was something we worked with Sue on very carefully to make sure that we have serious measurements, to make sure we are held accountable to achieving what we have set out to achieve. And a big part of this, again, is to make sure that we are making an impact and that we are changing the world and that we are helping a lot of people during this very difficult time, people who need the internet, people who can benefit from the internet. And that's what we're here to do. And once again, I'd just like to say in closing, we are thrilled with who we are working with now. We are really excited and looking forward to who's going to come next, what kind of applications we're going to get, and what other kinds of work that we can all do together to make this world a better place. So thank you very much. I'll turn it back now to Mabel.
Thanks for that, Sarah. So that brings us to the end of the discussion. Just to remind people, we do have a copy of our 2021 action plan on our website and here as well. And if you have any questions, the email you see here is to our team's mailbox, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you again for your time today. And just to reiterate what Sarah said, it's a pleasure to work with this community and to do this work. and just to be able to do this important work and to do it with all of you. So with that, I will stop sharing here and see what questions people might have. And I will start perhaps, and actually, I'll just see if anyone wants to unmute and ask any questions, and then we'll hop over to the chat as well. So if you do have a question right now, do feel free to just unmute and ask your question. And I see a raised hand here from Rugari Tambo. So maybe why don't you go ahead, Rugari?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mabel. Thank you. The presentation was really great. I am a development specialist, communication, so internet and like computer science is not my specialty in a sense, but obviously now with the world moving forward, it's needed, and I'm happy to be part of this community. So the question that I have is with regards to the rare, you're talking about that as one of the priorities for 2021. And I just wanted to know how soon or how late do you think that'll be active? Because I do work with a UN agency addressing cyclone displaced communities in Zimbabwe. And so infrastructure is really our thrust. And so that infrastructure side of rare would be really useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Rugari. I'll take that one since that program is in my portfolio. The idea is that we would aim to have it launch in the first part of Q3, so in July-ish. I don't want to give you a specific date because then if I don't make the date, I will feel bad about it. But yeah, I think that program is going to be really interesting, and I think you know, in terms of infrastructure and places and sort of overlapping the data on where natural disasters and things like that are prone, and looking at, you know, what the infrastructure is currently in some of those places and where we can really leverage dollars to make an impact and to improve. And so certainly, you know, if you have expertise or know things about that, I'm happy to hear more from you and chat with you. There are other programs that you're working on that, you know, we could align some of our efforts, and I'm happy to do that as well. Because I think that is really significant work. I mean, I think if we just think about what's happening in Texas with one of our teammates right now, you know, there's an ice storm that has knocked out power for millions of people. And so these things are happening all over the world all the time. So how do we really build communities that and support infrastructure that can recover quickly when these types of things happen?
Thanks for that, Shana, and thank you, Rugari, for the question. I'm happy to see you're in Zimbabwe. Nice to see another face here. Actually, I don't know if you're in Zimbabwe, but definitely from Zimbabwe. Any other questions that people might have? Feel free to put them in the chat or to just unmute. And I'm seeing some comments here, some thank yous. And just to repeat what Connie put in the chat here, we do have a newsletter and we encourage you to sign up for it via our website. It's just, if you scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, there's a way you can subscribe right through there.
Hello, I'm audible.
Yes, please go ahead.
First of all, thanks for this nice presentation. Like I was just saying that providing internet is not the only thing that we need to just consider for the security also. Like if I'll just talk about India, like in India, in every 2 or 3 months, we have a like cyber attack. So what are we doing for this like kind of security things? That's my question.
Do you want me to take this one? Because I know we do some work on this under permit. Awesome. So thank you very much, Nithya. And I saw you describe some of the work you're doing in the chat earlier, which is really interesting. In terms of the work we're doing specifically on kind of security or cyber security, we don't have a program focused specifically on things like digital security. However, we do have projects that include that as part of the work that they're doing. Some of our skills grantees have included kind of how to be safe online as part of the broader work that they're doing to teach the populations and communities they're working with about how to use the internet. And I know definitely that some of our chapters work specifically on that issue. be it either being involved in cybersecurity policies at the national level or teaching girls how to be safe online. It's something our Palestine chapter has done, or pieces like that. So it's happening within different projects, even though we don't have a specific program focused on that, if that answers your question.
Thanks. I would like to say that I'm also a student. Like I'm having major in cybersecurity and data forensics. So I'm on my level. I'm just trying my best to just help people to just know what is good and what is bad on internet. And but what I think providing internet is not like enough. We need to just teach them what to use, what to not to use. What are the things that they need to click and what are the things that they don't need to click and all these things. So we need to teach these things to them. So, I'll be requesting you to just initiate a chapter or something like that for these things.
Yeah, thanks. I also would just add that one of the within our research program, we have currently two thematic areas that we're focusing on. The first is around greening the internet, and the second one is around the internet economy. We do anticipate launching two additional thematic areas, and one would be on a trustworthy internet. So it really would focus on the types of things that you're describing. I think that's important as well. And so that should be coming online around April. So again, given that you're a student and connected to academics and academia, that perhaps that would be something that you would be interested in.
Thanks for that, Shayna. And there's also a question in the chat, Shayna, around evaluation and impact measurement for research projects. And I'm assuming that question is about the research program. So perhaps I'll let either Shayna or Sue weigh in. And David, if you want to also elaborate on your question too, that would be good.
I think I'll let Sue kind of talk about a little bit of what we've been doing and our thoughts on that, because they are ever evolving, and this is a new program, and so we're trying out and testing out a few things, but I'll let Sue speak more specifically to that.
Hi, David, did you want to add anything? I saw you unmuted your mic for a little bit.
Now, I just wanted to get a sense of whether you had some set of metrics. Obviously, you're funding a lot of applied research. It's not the kind of basic research that National Science Foundation or some other types of organizations fund. But anybody that's funding research, struggles, I think, always with trying to figure out what the impact is, because sometimes it doesn't have an impact immediately. Sometimes the impact's very diffuse. Quite often it depends on what kind of linkages you've built between research and potential decision makers. I guess the question is whether you're using the sort of we're going to learn as we go method, or whether you're going in with a set of, well, these are our kind of initial metrics we're going to look at. Some people might look at, take up in the policy community. Other people might look at impact scores of publications. There's a whole bunch of different ways, and I just wanted to get a better sense of whether you have any idea about how you're going to do it. Also, it looks like, based on the first cohort, there's a wide variety of research projects. So I'm sure that's going to be kind of, test, adapt, learn when you're trying to figure out what the metrics are.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David. And yeah, this is a conversation Shane and I have been having in recent weeks. At the moment, what we've settled on in terms of our results statement is really focusing on advancing the understanding of the internet and its value. So our starting step is to look at contributing to the body of evidence on the potential and future of the internet. This could change in the medium to long term, but our initial short-term goal will be really to contribute to evidence about the benefits of the internet and its potential for solving problems in the world. So the indicators we're looking at there are, as you mentioned, the number and types of research products, and we've left products really broad. Papers, talks, conferences, workshops, contributions to policy discussions and decision making. We've left it purposefully broad because since this is a new program, as Shayna mentioned, we don't want to be too prescriptive and kind of lock ourselves out of any potential results or change that we might not be able to conceive of at the moment. So the first and only indicator we have at the moment is looking at the number of products that are developed with our support, and then we would hope to build on that by creating spaces or platforms for our researchers to share these products, present them in different spaces, maybe collaborate more amongst each other or with members of the wider community to which we're connected, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very much in the initial stages, but it is an iterative process and something that we'll come back and review every few months.
Thank you for that, Sue. I just want to address one question in the chat, which was around, and it came to me around, the person noted that, does ISOC have an action plan to protect the internet for people, especially in this age of shutdown? So ISOC has been doing, the Internet Society, a lot of research around internet shutdowns and publishing. So I do encourage people to check out the Internet Society website for some more of those details. And of course, for the foundation being a supporting organization, we very much support the research they're doing to help make sure the internet remains open and free. So I'm just answering that question, which came to me directly, but wasn't in the chat. And then I also see a raised hand here from Hasnain. Apologies if I didn't pronounce that correct, but please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Hasnan Bukhari, and I'm based in Germany. Been associated with academia for past 15 years and teacher at the School of Public Policy at University of Erfurt in Germany, and have had a project on internet politics and social media for 3 years, and have been listening to ISOC before as well in past and participating. My question straight is regarding research. Since I come from academia, I've got a question regarding research. So if I understood it correctly, research will also be a part of programs which will be funded. And the question that I probably missed, or the statement that I probably missed, you can clarify, are these research funded programs on individual basis, because I keep contributing in research papers as well, or are these research programs more for organization based? So, and A, individual, B, organizational, and C, the question would be, how are they, how do they look like? Do they have some timeline? Do they have like 3 months timeline, 6 months timeline? How do they work? Maybe you can just elaborate on the how long process of these research projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that question. Yes, so to answer your question, the research grant program is open to both individuals and organizations. And we have no stipulation or requirement for how long they have to be, except with the exception that they cannot exceed 2 years. So if you go to the website, on the page that describes the program, you'll see it says projects can be awarded up to $200,000 and up to 2 years in length. But we do accept applications and statements of interest from both individuals and organizations. And again, we've done that on purpose. That was a very intentional decision because we wanted to support folks who maybe are not traditional academics, or people who are not working for or working with universities or think tanks or things like that, because other research exists outside of those spaces. And so we wanted to make sure that we make that program accessible for them as well. So to answer your question, yes, everyone can apply, though you should have some expertise and some knowledge in the domain that you wish to research, and you should have certainly some previous experience on those topics.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Thanks for that. And I did put a link just now in the chat to the information we have on our website on the research program. I'm just skimming now. Any other questions people might have?
Hi, this is Ayush here. I'm from the Center for Internet and Society, and we are one of the members of the first cohort that has been funded by the ISO Foundation. And yeah, I just want to first say thank you for putting this together. It was sort of great to see and hear from all of you. Especially since we've been communicating over email for the past couple of months. What I was actually curious about was, I just wanted to hear from you about how it is that you went about talking through and sort of doubling down on these priority areas for this year, maybe for forthcoming years. I mean, given especially that there's so much work to be done, to be supported, to be thought about, how did you go about sort of doubling down on these sort of core areas to work in over the next year?
I can take that, Mabel. Thank you for the question. As I mentioned early on, there was a consultant, Bridgespan, and they did a lot of research to identify the gaps in funding and where there were areas that really could benefit from additional funding through philanthropy. So it was the 5 areas that we talked about. Of course, as we mentioned, the Internet Society chapters were automatically going to come into the foundation. So that was always going to be one area, funding those chapters throughout the world. And then the other areas really were identified, as I mentioned, through a lot of research and a lot of conversations about where it was that funding was needed. And when I joined the organization in 2019, this was when we could still travel. I went around and talked to an awful lot of people in the industry to verify that they felt that these were areas that needed to be funded. So capacity building, getting people who are connected to understand the benefit. We named that program skills, but it is all about building capacity, digital literacy skills. That was identified as a gap, and we're now able to do it. And in every case of this program, the Beyond the Net program, all of these things, as we talked about, we are testing the way in which we've developed a program and learning from it. There was definitely a gap in research. We pulled together researchers from around the world, and I know we're short on time, so I'll just go quickly. Again, they helped us define that program, and then Shana took those notes and she turned it into a real thing. The disaster, I think everybody knows that there's a big gap there. And unfortunately, it's just going to get worse because disasters are going to continue to happen more often, as we have one of our team members right now sitting in a hotel lobby because she's without power for who knows how long, right? So we saw these gaps and we developed programs that would respond to them. And at this point, we feel very comfortable with the portfolio, but to be frank, it's possible that we will change the portfolio. But right now, this is where we are.
Thanks for that, Sarah. We are at the top of the hour, so we will close the session now. But again, thank you so much, everyone. It's been a pleasure to have this conversation, and do feel free, as always, to reach out to us with your questions, with your ideas. We look forward to just continuing to work together. And I think that's all. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weeks. And just looking at the chat one last time. Okay, yes, thanks. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye, and take good care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.